In this video, we'll be looking at how to analyze a natural pop sound and recreate something similar using Bitwig's Polymer Synth. At the end, we'll reproduce our sound using the popular open source synthesizer Vital. This is Synnovator, synthesizing noise, visuals, and knowledge for creatives and innovators. Visit freesound.org or record yourself making a popping sound like so with your phone or computer microphone. Next, play back the sound and use your ears and eyes to understand the frequency content. By looking at the waveform or oscilloscope, note the space between the waves, which might indicate the pitch. Note the height of the waves, which indicates the amplitude or loudness. Note the shape of the waves, which will determine the timbre and loudness perception. Run the sound through a spectrogram to understand the movement of the pitch and the fundamental frequencies. The overtones might be important to reproduce the same character of the sample using sound design techniques. How I tried to reproduce the sound with Bitwig.
I brought in Polymer Synth and set it to use a sine wave. Next I turned off key tracking as I don't need this for my sound effect.
I brought in a curve and I tried to recreate something like the pop with the curve representing the pitch. At the beginning there's a kind of low frequency rasp,
followed by a ramp up in pitch, which seems to be really important in the final sound, which I'll come back to later.
I mapped the curve to the frequency offset. I gave everything a fast attack by messing with the ADSR. Around about 100 milliseconds seemed to work really well, and no attack whatsoever. Similarly, we need to increase the speed of the curve and set it to be triggered by a note. We're getting close. We don't need the low pass and we don't want any sub. We do want a little noise triggered by the ADSR. That's already starting to sound like a pop.
For consistency, I turned off velocity sensitivity.
If we have a look with an oscilloscope, we can see we are lacking a contrast between the attack and release of the sound. Add some kind of compression.
With compression, I was able to emphasize the attack more. With Compressor Plus, I preferred the glue setting and a high ratio around 4:1, and the learn setting. I added a convolution reverb of a wooden attic, which I felt complemented the sound the best. This emphasizes the high frequency tones by blurring them over time. With EQ, I tried to emphasize the same fundamental frequency around 729 Hz. Low-end content was not really present in my original recording, so that was reduced with a low cut. For presence, I brought in a bell curve with a wide Q factor centered around 5 kHz. I slightly increased Polymer's attack to smooth out the click at the beginning. Spend some time tweaking and doing A/B comparisons between your original sound and your synth, making small tweaks and saving presets as you go. When you're happy, set the final levels and you can bounce out your sound or use it as a preset. It's up to you. I noticed that a simple ramp in the curve rather than any complex changes in pitch, it would seem to be all that was necessary to get a really bubbly pop sound. How I made the pop sound effect with Vital. Initialize Vital to the default preset. Choose basic shapes to get a sine wave, then set the LFO1 mode to envelope and begin making your pitch curve. Set the tempo to seconds and a really fast speed like so. In envelope 1, cut the sustain and reduce the decay to match the release around 0.16. I transposed down a few times and applied LFO1 to the pitch control. I added that tiny bit of white noise triggered by envelope 1. I added some soft clip distortion to drive a punchy sound, and added some basic compression after the distortion. The white noise was being boosted too much by the distortion and compression, so I reduced this a little more. Next I added some reverb and reduced the time right down to about 0.1 of a second. I reduced the mix. Next I added the equalizer and boosted the fundamental frequency slightly, which I slightly adjusted with the transpose. A really strong fundamental seems to be fundamental to the pop sound. Adjust the output gain so it's not clipping. A little tweak here, a little tweak there.
and we have a pretty decent pop sound. Once again, this was Cinnovator. Let me know what you thought of the video, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.